In 2025, vibe coding became Collins Dictionary Word of the Year. Platforms that promised being able to build full apps without knowing how to code or any technical knowledge exploded. But here's what they're not showing you. In one of these platforms, 170 apps were completely exposed. Customer data, government IDs, they were all breached. And remember that time where an AI agent almost wiped out an entire database of a company? Yeah, remember that time? That was fun, right? Analysts are now predicting a $1.7 trillion in technical debt by 2027. And I say this all the time. Having worked with almost 50 different companies at this point implementing AI solutions, this is one of the biggest patterns we see all the time. Clients try to use these platforms to try to build a full production app and then realize that there are certain bugs that they just can't figure out how to solve, approach us for help, only to realize they have wasted their entire time because we have to rebuild the whole thing from scratch again. So I can confidently say the vibe coding hangover is coming in 2026. And if you're a business owner thinking you can build a full production app by just talking to ChatGPT, this video could save you from a complete disaster. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll first show you why the vibe coding hype is over in 2026, what it can do and what it can't do, and what will replace it in 2026. If you're new to this channel and don't know who I am, my name is Edwin Chen, and over the past year, I've been running my own AI agency, Legacy AI. I've been helping 46 different businesses implementing chat, voice, and automation solutions to eliminate their operational bottlenecks so they can focus on the business, not in the business. So, vibe coding is, if you didn't know, basically you don't know anything about software engineering and you don't really know how to code. But because LLM, like ChatGPT, are really good at writing code, or supposedly very good at writing code, by just talking to it, like Claude Code, ChatGPT, you're able to build a full application and you just need to describe, like talk to the ChatGPT, and you'll be able to have that function being done. And it was started being done by Andre Carpathy. If you didn't know, I think it was a co-founder of Claude. Basically, he was saying like, oh, it was a weekend project, like talk to the composer in SuperWizard, which you don't need to know what that is. For example, the AI would generate you the code in Cursor, and then you would just click accept, accept, accept without actually understanding or reading what the LM outputs. You just keep clicking accept and it will ultimately finish building the application that you want. Now, obviously this goes viral, got 5 million views in 2025, and people start using this idea to build different platforms. Now, one thing that most people actually forget is that it's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects, not production ready project. Now, this is going to be very, very important later on. Remember, this is meant to be for some fun throwaway weekend project. But obviously, people keep working on this idea and they start a bunch of hype. You see platforms like Lovable AI, which is one of these vibe coding platforms where you can just talk to the platform, it'll build you an app, website, etc. Right? It's $100 million. Cursor hits $9 billion in valuation. And you have the Base 44 ad, which I'm sure you see it all the time if you're on YouTube, that can build full production ready applications without knowing how to code at all. That's all the hype that's going on in 2025. Now, let me give you some reality check of what's actually happening. In Lovable, they found out that 170 apps within this platform that people vibe coded has access, anyone can have access to these sites, users information, like the customer's information, like names, email address, password, finance information, for example, money in the bank account, and even secret API keys for servers. So hackers can actually hack into this system and gain access to all these different information for Lovable, right? This is actually what happened in May 2025. Replit, another platform for doing these vibe coding apps, face similar issues. But one moment, apparently according to this person, it deletes the entire database without permission during an active code. And they even lie about it. It's bad enough that they've deleted an entire company's database. Imagine you have a database of your company, you hook it up to Replit and you talk to it, and for some reason, without telling it to, it just completely deletes your entire database. Just customer database just poofed, gone. And the worst thing is that AI lies about this. Like, this is even worse. And someone in Cursor basically said that you just delete my whole data from a database, and then I sincere apology. Yes, I made a serious mistake. We see this happening all the time. And yeah, it's not as good as you think it is. In reality, according to some stats, 72% of developers who actually work on these applications every day, they did not use just vibe coding in 2025. Meaning in reality, in productions, they don't just talk to ChatGPT, hope for the best, and build some random apps. That's not reality. And more than half of them don't use any coding agents actually, or prefer very simpler AI tools rather than these fancy, lovable, Replit, Bo.new, all these different platforms, right? Just use old traditional coding. And the reason why actually is because of breaches. A lot of these vibe coding apps, as you see earlier, lacks very robust security measures, so making these systems really vulnerable to data breaches that compromise user trust. Just imagine you're a big company, not even big, you have stored customers, like say their payment data or their bank details, personal information, and all of them being breached. How would your user feel about that? Not just that, but also failures. So many projects actually demonstrate that vibe coding often leads to project failures. So basically, they ran into a wall eventually. They keep using this vibe coding, basically just talking to ChatGPT, ran into a wall, hire someone else to fix it. There are literally jobs opening right now for vibe coding cleaning experts to clean up these project failures. That means they have to reinvest more resources into that to clean it up and hire actual people to build this app, and just wasted both time and investment. I told you, like, we see this all the time. Like, there are literally clients who do literally that, bump into some errors, ask us to fix it, and we have to rebuild the whole thing. That's just waste of everyone's time, right? So why does this happen? The LM looks so good. The code seems, it's like magic. Why does it happen though? The first limitation why this happened is the context window ceilings. Every large language model that you see, like ChatGPT, has something called context window. That's the amount of information with the amount of text that can be fed inside an LLM like ChatGPT in a given time. For example, ChatGPT 5.1 might have a 1 million context window. That means that they can only hold 1 million tokens at a time during a conversations. Now, because with a lot of these app projects, the code base, what we call code base, basically a place where we store all the different codes for like a specific application, that grows exponentially as it gets more and more complicated, and especially during production-ready applications. There will be a time where it hits the limits of the model. For example, it hits the 1 million tokens for GPT 5.1. That means that the ChatGPT can't actually scan the entire code of your application, meaning that it will miss information that it needs to in order to output the correct code, right? So that's why sometimes when it reaches that limit, the LM can produce absolutely garbage that has nothing to do with the project or just simply wrong because it just doesn't have all those information. There's also the complexity threshold. So LMs are really good, like ChatGPT is really good at writing like very, very simple function or writing like one very specific code that does one tiny specific thing. For example, checking date time, generating a very specific kind of website. But once it gets to kind of a multi-architecture where it gets much more complicated, where there are compliance being built in like HIPAA, like GDPR compliance, or when it goes to like a production-ready database and there's so many different features, there are many things that you need to take care of, that's where it starts to break down because it just simply can't handle that complexity. They're not intelligent enough yet. Another big thing is that it has non-deterministic debugging, meaning that because you, as the vibe coder, you don't know what the output is. So you don't actually review the code yourself. You just simply don't understand if the AI actually outputs something right or wrong, because it might seem to work in the beginning, but there's already small little things that the LM is doing wrong. You just haven't noticed it yet because it doesn't seem to affect the whole application, but someone experienced, someone technical would go into that code and review them and be like, yeah, that's actually a slight mistake. But once a slight mistake has been made and you just keep clicking accept all in your app, in your vibe coding app, these small mistakes will slowly spiral into a massive mistake. And at some point, you would be like, oh, this is not working. And you just hope the LLM can randomly fix the error. Now, unfortunately, because it spirals so many times, it's so many layers deep into the code base, it's really, really hard for someone to just go in there and identify the bug because it's so hidden and it keeps spiraled. So that's what we meant by non-deterministic debugging. We're just hoping the LLM to randomly be able to fix the bug. Scalability walls. So vibe coding is really good if it's like a kind of like a demo, like it's only served for a small limited amount of audience. But once you get signed up to like thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of customers or users, that's where it's going to hit a wall. And the LM is not efficient enough to generate codes that can handle 10,000 or hundreds of thousands of users in your app. Now, what's the solution? The solution to all of that is what we call the new term, what people call vibe engineering. It's actually originated from a very well-respected developer in the space called Simon Wilson. And his philosophy is basically other end of the spectrum. He defined vibe engineering as the opposite end of the vibe coding spectrum, right? Vibe coding and then you have vibe engineering. And vibe engineering is where seasoned professionals kind of accelerate the works with ChatGPT, with large language models, but staying proudly and confidently accountable for the software they produce. So it's kind of targeting different audiences. So vibe coding is for anyone, right? It's like the dream, telling you the dreams. Anyone non-technical, doesn't know how to code or anything, can build a full production app. Vibe engineering is saying that people who do know how to go, who has some technical knowledge, can produce these kind of production apps much faster than before with the assistance of LLMs like ChatGPT. Rather than completely replacing the developer or people who are technical, it's just an assistant, an acceleration to people who are already technical. That's the kind of term. In simpler terms, it just means that when you use agents for coding, but you're suspicious of 90% of the output. So you go in there and say like, I'm going to assume that the output the LLM just gave me is probably wrong, or wrong in some way. And you try to understand what it means and then try to make it better. That's what vibe engineering is. I got this from an AI engineering seminar I think is really good. I might just link it in the description. He gave a really, really good talk. So what are the features? Like, what does it actually mean? Like, what are the specific advice? So it's creating strong basic building blocks is essential. So it turns out that when you start building any applications, if you just say, build me a medical healthcare app, it's not going to do anything. You need to define at a fundamental level, what are the blocks, what the basic unit of building this app is. And that means develop reusable processes or frameworks that AI can use as a starting point for more complex tasks. So rather than starting from scratch and tell it to just build me an AI app, you start from the simplest case possible. For example, write me a specific function that only does X, Y, and Z. And you tell the AI, this is another function that can do another specific things. This is another function that can do this specific thing. So X, Y, and Z, combining them together, you can then kind of group them together and ask the AI to generate the code for slightly more complex tasks. So you build your ground up from very, very specific to more general, kind of vibe coding space where I just build me anything, right? And you need to clearly reference these building blocks in your instructions and be specific about how you want things done. So you need to be extremely specific to how you want the AI to do certain things. And sometimes that means using technical concepts, software engineering concepts for the LLM or ChatGPT to be able to understand you. So this is another great example that I saw in another talk, is that this is the difference. What you see on the left, you can see it's so detailed. It's like, I realized that, don't worry about this. It's a very specific, like, technical term. So you provide any styles, but you should provide class names so the user can apply the class style to the class. So again, it's really specific and technical concept, and you're explaining that you're teaching the LLM what to do instead and what they're getting wrong. On the right is your general vibe coder who just say, oh, change this entire code base to a specific language, make no mistake. So this is the difference. If you do things on the right, it's probably going to get it wrong. If you do things on the left, you're going to get much, much more accurate responses. So when to use what? Where vibe coding really good at is really quick prototyping and MVPs. So they are really good at proving the concept to investors, or if you're in a company, proving it to your team leader, etc., that this app would work and what does it look like initially. And where vibe coding would be really good at is internal tools and admin panels, where it doesn't really matter, right? It's just for the team internally to use, for example, to organize their work, or some sort of like daily checklist, or some sort of dashboard to track their daily tasks that the employees themselves, only themselves use. And it doesn't really matter that much. And vibe coding is really good when it's about creating really pretty looking stuff. For example, websites, one of the best use cases for vibe coding, because it's really good at creating pretty and visually stimulating front end. And it's also really good for learning experimentation, right? Experimenting different app ideas and learning how software engineering works. But unfortunately for production, you lean towards using vibe engineering where it's for production applications, or you have live or massive databases where you cannot afford to delete anything. And then you have the PII, which is like when the applications involved with sensitive personal information like customers' data, you should always be very, very skeptical about the output of the ChatGPT output. So this is where the difference, like when I would use vibe coding and when you should use vibe engineering. So what does it mean to you? If you're a business owner watching this, it means that being able to understand the shift in the market from vibe coding, just talking to ChatGPT to build an app for your business, to vibe engineering, meaning that letting seasoned professionals who know what they're doing accelerate their work, help them finish their work faster, will help you make a lot of strategic decisions about hiring technical teams or handling technical projects for your business. And prioritizing investments in kind of people who are technical will make that growth sustainable and mitigate any risk, rather than listening to the hype influencers and be like, oh yeah, let me try it instead, or let your employees who are not necessarily technical and don't really know what they're doing and just try it, see what happens. It ends up costing more to do it this way if you're looking for a very important production ready app than just hiring someone who knows what they're doing in the first place to build the app for you. And that's the reality of the market in 2026. So hopefully you learned something in this video. I go over this really quickly just to give you a rough idea. And yeah, if you're interested in working with me and my team, you're more than welcome to use the link in the description to book a free discovery call with us. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video.